If a fire broke out right now and there was no main water supply, what would a fire crew actually do? For hundreds of rural properties, farms and commercial sites across the UK, this isn't a hypothetical question but a genuine risk. And the answer, more often than not, comes down to one thing, and that's a firefighting tank. Hello, I'm Callum from GRAF UK, and in this video I'm going to talk you through everything you need to know about firefighting tanks. We'll walk you through what they are, which type suits your site, how much water you need to collect, what the regulations require, and how to get it right first time. Whether you're a farmer putting up a new barn, a developer working on a rural housing scheme, or a business expanding its premises away from the mains network, this guide is for you. Let's start with the basics. So what actually is a firefighting tank? Put simply, they're a dedicated water tank, sometimes known as a fire water storage tank or a static water supply. They're designed for immediate and dependable supply of water for fire suppression. The key word there is dedicated. This isn't a general purpose water tank. It's a reserve set aside for emergency use only. For rural parts of England and Wales, there are properties that either sit outside the reach of mains water entirely or are supplied by water pipes that are too narrow to sustain the flow rates that firefighting demands. When a fire crew arrives to a site without mains water supply actually on site, they face dangerous delays. They may have to relay a water supply over significant differences, and every second matters. A correctly specified firefighting tank means water is ready the moment it's needed. Now, there are several different types of firefighting tanks that you need to know, and the best one for you depends on a number of key factors. So let me walk you through it. The first and a well-known option is above ground steel tanks, which are very common in agriculture and industrial sites. They're relatively simple to install, easy to inspect, and come in a wide range of capacities. A galvanized or powder-coated steel tank on a concrete plinth will give you a long service life with minimal upkeep. The main trade-off for them being above ground means they're exposed to temperature extremes, plus they take up valuable surface space. If aesthetics, land use and frost protection are higher priorities for you, then a below ground tank might be a better option. At GRAF UK, our range of firefighting tanks are made from polypropylene, a robust, lightweight material that's resistant to corrosion, temperature variation and ground movement. Buried tanks offer protection against temperature swings, accidental damage, and free up space for other uses. They do, of course, require more groundworks during the installation phase, but once they're in, they're out of sight and out of mind. One important note, however, is that access hatches must be clearly marked and positioned so that fire crews, when they arrive on site, can locate draw-off points quickly. For sites with awkward access, GRP sectional tanks are worth considering. These arrive on site in flat panels that are constructed. They're perfect for retrofitting to existing buildings or where single vessel tanks simply cannot fit. And then for temporary situations like events, construction sites, or emergency cover whilst permanent infrastructure is being installed, flexible bladder tanks are an excellent option. They're not a long-term solution, but they fill a genuine gap. So once you've settled on your type, how much water does your tank actually need to hold? The required volume depends on the nature of the building or the risk being protected, the flow rate the fire crew will need, and how long that flow rate will need to be sustained for. A commonly cited reference point in the National Guidance Document for the Provision of Water for Firefighting is 45,000 litres as a minimum for certain alternative water supplies for non-domestic contexts. But here's the thing, that's not a universal rule that applies to every single rural property, it's just a starting point. The actual requirement for your property will depend on the building type and use, the local authority, and the guidance in force at the time of approval. For higher risk sites like warehouses, timber yards, farm sheds storing dry crops, or facilities handling highly flammable materials, the required volume could run up to 100,000 litres or more. A fire engineer will assess your building's footprint, occupancy, construction materials used, and the distance for the next alternative water supply before arriving at a figure. One practical detail that is easy to overlook is that the tank must be capable of delivering the required flow rate as well as the total volume. A tank that holds enough water yet has an undersized outlet fitting will fail to deliver the required water during an emergency, so you need to get the fittings right. Now, let's talk about regulations. The regulatory landscape for firefighting tanks in the UK is shaped by planning requirements, building regulations, and guidance from fire and rescue authorities, and it varies by nation, building type, and local authority. In England, fire safety requirements for new buildings are addressed through Approved Document B, part of the Building Regulations Framework. Scotland uses the Scottish Building Standards Technical Handbooks. Wales and Northern Ireland have their own separate regimes. Approved Document B does not prescribe specific tank sizes. but it does reference the need for an adequate water supply for firefighting as part of the compliance picture. On planning applications, the Fire and Rescue Service are often consulted through the relevant regulatory process. Where a site lacks adequate mains water supply or hydrant coverage, evidence of an alternative water supply may be required before approval is granted. And where tanks are connected to main supplies, the water supply regulations require appropriate backflow prevention to protect public water supplies. The practical takeaway: don't assume the requirements. Confirm them with your local fire and rescue service or with a fire engineer. What applies to one site may not apply to the other. Installation comes with its own set of requirements. Location is critical. The tank must be positioned so that the fire appliances can park within pumping distance of the draw-off point. Guidance figures vary between fire authorities, so confirm the applicable distance for your site locally rather than assuming. Access roads must be capable of bearing the weight of a fully loaded fire engine, which can exceed 17 tons. Signage is a non-negotiable. The tank's location must be clearly marked to show the presence of a static water supply, its capacity, and where the draw-off point is readable from the direction of approach. And inlet and outlet connections must conform to the fittings required by your local fire and rescue service. Routine checks should include water level monitoring, structural inspections for cracks or corrosion, testing outlet valves and connections, and clearing any debris or algal growth from the interior. For below-ground tanks, check access hatches and draw-off covers regularly for damage or obstruction. Many tank suppliers offer maintenance contracts that cover periodic inspections, cleaning, and minor repairs. For larger installations, a formal maintenance regime documented in your site fire safety log is strongly advisable, and in some cases required by insurers or fire risk assessors. So what are the practical steps to getting this right? Engage the fire authority early, not by contacting them directly in most cases, but by understanding that the Fire and Rescue Service will be consulted through the planning or building regulations process, and making sure your tank specification is ready when that consultation happens. For larger or more complex schemes, commission an independent fire engineering assessment. Choose a tank type that suits your site conditions, available space, and long-term maintenance requirements. Confirm the correct fittings and access infrastructure with your local service before installation. And once the tank is in, arrange commissioning, document everything, and establish a maintenance schedule before it goes into service. Firefighting tanks aren't the most glamorous part of the build or the development, but it is one of the most important. A firefighting tank that is not maintained isn't a firefighting tank, it's a liability. If you're working on a project that requires a firefighting water storage solution, then the team at GRAF UK can help you find the right tank for your site. If you found this video helpful, please make sure to leave a like on it, and if you've got any questions about firefighting tanks, leave them in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to never miss a future video.